discussion point is about, they're all struggling to figure out what can I do during this pandemic side. There is quite a lot of people just waiting and have not done much the last 1.5 years. They're just waiting for the pandemic to pass on, because many of the education related innovation happening and happened during the last 5-6 years, it is all towards the digital side of it, right? There is quite a lot of people looking at the education space and thought that digital is the way it could solve the problems. And definitely this pandemic accelerated the need for digital, where work from home becoming a norm, and people are cribbing about it, putting out this horrible their workout videos and saying that, how am I killing the boredom sitting at home. Those are all luxury that people can have, right? While those side of India, which is trying to put out these saying that it is tough to work from home, and there are people who don't have a work at all. And we saw that the second week of our lockdown, there are almost 1 crore of people walked back to their villages from urban areas, hoping they would have a better livelihood in the cities, but they realize it's not possible. So now there are more people in the rural areas, especially the rural youth available, and what I call them is city return, because they are going back with a lot of knowledge, what worked, what did not work in the cities. So coming back to that education piece, right? When there is a over reliance on digital, and we are a country still, we need to figure that out for how to improve the digital divide, because I always call India is a developed country, developing and underdeveloped country. Because there's one side, there is a person living in $1 billion house and looking down, a slums where there is a 10x10 husband, wife, and their children and their cow lives. Then there is a confused middle class. So in this country today, we get confused about which part of the people that we are targeting, right? Who is our customer base? Because the data is skewed, right? If you ask anyone, they're saying that, okay, we have geo, we have this internet penetration, we have 800 million users who have internet access, right? But in India, we need to realize that we've invented the dual SIM, right? Because we have no idea how to say about no. We used to juggle with multiple phones. So Micromax gave us multiple SIMs so that you can have a 5 SIM in one phone. So we have 1 billion connections in the country, but unique users is different. So all the data available on internet, it is always talk about internet users, right? All the big data IT companies will tell you that, okay, Google has 800 million users, WhatsApp has this many users. These are all users, but not unique users, right? So there's one student in a college who was telling me that, I'm targeting 800 million internet users. I said, where you got the data? And he mentioned that it's from Google. I said, fantastic. Yeah, that the data must be true. But how many Google accounts you have, right? The student told me that he has 30 Google accounts. I said, you are the culprit, right? In India, we drink phenyl if it's given free. So Google is giving free accounts. A student has 30 accounts. So this is what's skewing the data. So unless you are an entrepreneur, really understand, peeling the onion and look at the data clearly, you will get skewed with the data. And because the data of developed India, underdeveloped India, developing all mixed up. And in India, data itself is a problem, because it is always who's shouting the loudest become the data, right? So this is where we want to demystify some of these thought process. And I'm very glad the pandemic made the problems very visible. Otherwise, only few of us used to talk about this digital divide. Today, we can see that people going back to villages, which proved that there are millions of people living in the slums of the cities, which many people, even the city, have no clue about, right? Bangalore has 2 million people in the slums. So similarly, even a few months back, Supreme Court telling the government, saying that how can the citizens can register for vaccine in an app where only 25% of the household have internet access. So now the government themselves relying on CSE center, which has lakh plus across the country to rely on passing the information. So like this pandemic made this problem very visible. So if the problem is visible, it's easy to solve. I think that's where I'm glad to have today, Shravan at ISAKSHAM. I remember visiting in Jamui 2 years back before pandemic, and how very remote part of this country plus extremists around, and ISAKSHAM started by a bunch of people, went to that region, part of the Prime Minister Fellowship 6-7 years back, and Shravan and his friend never left the place. So that's the kind of a commitment ISAKSHAM has to Jamui, where the school system before pandemic itself was broken. And I remember Shravan taking me to a college that the entire classrooms are all closed and it's all collecting dust, and students were in the admission point. They just come there to pay the fees and write exams. So everything else is they have to learn on their own. So ISAKSHAM started to bring the rural youth to teach themselves, right? They were creating this fellows program to bring in education to the people where the education system itself was a problem. But now hit with the pandemic and access to the people becoming tough. So we will learn from Shravan how he is able to handle, number one, even that school which was having at least some classroom, it's closed. Now the digital access with 25% household in the country has digital access. We cannot rely completely on digital access. So how they are innovating locally with digital, assisted digital plus offline model of doing things. So Shravan, please share us, how are you handling this pandemic? How are you ensuring that your job is not stopped or stalled, or you're waiting for a pandemic to get over, but you're on the ground hitting full swing? Go ahead, Shravan.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. I wouldn't start with like that. We started with full swing. So when this lockdown started, we also for quite some time we were very amazed, because never in our life we imagined that something like this would have happened. Like we could imagine something like this to happen in Mumbai, Delhi, but in Jamui or in villages we lived in, to happen something like this was something very unimaginable. So for quite some time we were looking out for what to do. Even after being there for 7 years, we were in very fix, not because of access, but because of the challenge that this pandemic poses. See, because the one who are designing the programs are not in the field. In the field are those edu leaders, and when this whole virus says that if you are in connect, you are in threat. So you also in your mindset has this thinking that are we putting everyone at risk when we are trying to access or when we are trying to reach out? So the complexities and the challenges were at different levels. But as Nagasa was saying, we have started working on, and I have enlisted few points that I would like to share with you as to what laid the foundation for what we did. So the very first thing that laid the foundation was this whole idea is whatever you do, whether you go digital, you do not go digital, what drives you? Like, why are you doing what you are doing? So if you're using WhatsApp, why are you using that WhatsApp? If you're using practice sheet, why are you using practice sheet? If you're using projects or some other mode, why are you doing that? So the basic idea which drives your intervention is the first thing that you start with. So one thing that pushes you when you started an intervention, when we started our intervention was access purely. We tried to reach out to as many students that we could reach out to. But the other central idea was, why are we doing what we are doing? And what do we really believe in? Why we are saying that we will teach by mobile, or we will teach on simple phones, and we will teach stories or poems on simple phones, and how it is guided by the philosophy that we built. And I will explain it later on. So this was the first idea, what drives your philosophy of what you are doing. The second, and I think the most important idea, is that one thing will not solve. Like you use practice sheets, you use simple mobile phones, you use library books, you use parents. One strategy will not serve. You have to keep looking for different strategies, and that And I will come and I will relate it to some other ideas that I will be talking about. First thing is what drives your philosophy. Why are you doing what you're doing? Second thing is being very aware that one strategy will not serve. You have to go beyond, even you have to go beyond what you were doing earlier. So it might be that earlier you were adopting an X strategy, but now you have to go with X plus A plus B plus C plus D. And all these strategies could be for one student also, and could be for different students also. This is the second point that led to what we do. The third thing is the role of partners and alliances. So when the pandemic hit, one big thing that we did was one project that we participated in, and it was not a project that we only 2 to 3 organizations were participating in. It was a project in which around 100 organizations in India participated in, and I think Santosh will talk more about it. The other thing that we did during this time was, in this point of crisis, what is education becomes very different. So if you are an education-based organization which is reaching out to children only, you cannot restrict yourself only to that. So in this pandemic, only for the first time in Bihar, 15 different organizations came together, and these organizations were working on very different ideas. Like the organizations are Innovators in Health, which works in health. The organization is Pradhan, which works in livelihood. The organization is iSaksham, which works in education. And what it did is that all these organizations brought in their own strengths. So what iSaksham could do, Pradhan could not do, but when they two come together, they complemented each other. Just to give you an idea. So Pradhan got a funding for reaching out to many rural migrants who were coming to Chakai, which is the most Naxal affected areas in Jammu. But Pradhan didn't have the bandwidth to create the database for these or for their families. So that's where iSaksham chipped in. We said, we will do this for you, for your organization, and we will do this. You focus on what you can do best, reaching out to these families. So this is what we did. And the fourth thing is, you have to expand the horizon. So like before the pandemic, what was happening? iSaksham edu leaders were going to the schools, we were engaging with the teachers, and we were reaching out to the students. But now when the pandemic is struck, you know that, and it's not a new knowledge that you have gained. From age old, people were saying that parents were the one who were with the students the most. But because it was accessible to you, children were coming to you, you just say ki chalo yaar parents nahi bhi hai, so we will do all the things that we can do. But when you know that you are not, the students are there with the parents, then you start realizing that what a big role these parents could play. And I will expand it a bit more. So when you talk about family, you get stuck with this idea of parents also. Ki parents hi hain. But if you expand it more, you'll find that parents are there, but siblings are the other big resources which are there, which are called untapped. And there are immense research which show that peers have the most influence on the education of anyone. So what I was saying is that every time you have to challenge anything that comes to your mind. So when you say families, you don't get stuck to parents. Parents, you just expand it a bit more. Who else could be there? So like the research says that we have to expand when we say this whole idea of parent, we have to expand it and we have to bring it family. Like we have to bring it more people into this idea. So engaging siblings became the other idea that we started working on very strongly. And because of the knowledge that we gained, just last month, we had a partnership with Jivika, which is the biggest self-help group organizations in Bihar. And we are planning to reach out to more than 1,000 families in Jamui based on Jivika's network. So Jivika has a very strong self-help group network in Bihar. So just because of the knowledge that we gained, we have started working with self-help groups and village organizations because of the learning that we had during the pandemic. And the last thing that I would say is that every organization during this time should start thinking that they could do this, and there are others who are doing this, and you have to be very happy in taking it from them and using this whole idea of the only thing that you can take great from this digital is copy paste and contextualize. You cannot do everything, and you cannot think everything. Howsoever brilliant you would be, you will be amazed by what others are doing, and you will say, "Arey yaar, mere dimag mein kyun nahi aaya? Main kyun nahi soch paya?" But the other thing that you start thinking is, नहीं आया तो नहीं आया, कोई बात नहीं है, कोई अगर दूसरा कर रहा है, how can I take that and I can start using it in my context. So like I will say that, so what we did, we tried different strategies, practice it, libraries, engaging parents, engaging siblings. One thing that unique thing that we have started doing is, I will not say unique, I will link it to Pratham also. One thing that we have started doing is we have started using simple mobile phones, and we have started making groups. So Airtel has, Jio has this phenomena that you can, with a one click, you can reach out to 5 simple mobile phones. So we made group, we have started reaching out to simple mobile phones, and we have started telling us stories with this whole idea that when we tell stories, we will keep building on the things that we were doing when the schools were open. Dialogue should be the central idea. So when you tell stories, you will have dialogue. When you will tell the story, after that you will have dialogue. This you were doing when the schools were open. This you will do when the schools are closed. So this is the first point that I was saying. What drives your idea? So this is not a new idea. If you go to a Story Weavers has got this phenomenon where they will share a link with you. You click on that link and you will get to hear a story. What it doesn't does is, it doesn't discuss, it doesn't communicate, it doesn't engage कि आपने ये क्यों बोला, आपको ये क्यों लगता है. So you take it from a Story Weavers, you build on. So there are many challenges to all these ideas. But what I'm saying is, when you try these, you will be amazed if you listen to some of the audios. Like if you listen to some of the audios which I have shared with Naga sir or Tum Tum Tomater, which some of our edu leaders have done, you'll be amazed by how students have reacted to it on a simple mobile phone. What it does is one very good thing. So जब आप किसी parent के पास जाते हैं and you say to that parent कि मोबाइल फोन पे बच्चा को पढ़ाएंगे. हमारे यहाँ पे अगर आप बच्चे के साथ खेले भी तो स्कूल में, if you play with the children, so the parents will say ये क्या कर रहा है, that child is not learning, he is only playing or she is only playing. तो अगर आप किसी पेरेंट के पास जाके कहें कि मोबाइल फोन पे पढ़ाएंगे, तो they will think कि क्या कर रहा है. But if that mobile phone is on a speaker mode and you are doing this tum tum tomater with your child and the parent is there, she might not be interested at that point of time. But when she sees कि अरे बगल का बच्चा ऐसे बोल रहा है, मेरा बच्चा ऐसे बोल रहा है, कोई जो बोल रहा था वो ऐसे बोल रहा है, then something starts happening with that parent. Many times why parents are not doing what they are not doing is because they are not aware. They have not seen in their life something like this, or they have not thought about it. So when you start doing practices like this, they become more aware, they become more engaged, and they start to participate. I think I will close at this. Naga sir.
Excellent. Thanks, Shravan. I think, see the 3 things, right? What Shravan is bringing into the point is about, one is, there is a simple feature phone, right? Yeah. You don't need to be 4G smartphone and all that stuff, but there are a lot of things can be done using simple phone itself, is a feature phone, right? That's one point. The second is about many of the nonprofits. Even we had in our social, we had nonprofit we have incubated earlier, where there were focus like a Meraki. Their focus was about involving parents in the education process, right? So now that because of this pandemic, it become that byproduct of this problem. The good news is that today, what the child has easy access to is, as Shravan mentioned, a parent and a sibling. How do we engage them in the education process? I think that automatically brought into angle where we don't have to do a separate initiative to bring parents' involvement in child education. So the third element is about what we keep talking about, this experiential learning, where what Shravan is mentioning, they started having this Garko Siko, right? So they're able to make the grandmas making timetables, right? I think we'll share the video of how are they doing it. Now the children are learning through things which is available in the home itself, right? Where we have a separate nonprofits or education related startups talking about experiential learning. But today there is no choice for them but to go with the experiential learning, right? Today start looking at how the cooking is happening at home, is what is the chemistry coming out of it, right? What is biology happening in there, right? What is happening in every aspect of what you're doing at home. Now, today, the grandmas and parents are able to come back in in the education process, creating timetables to start looking at it. So this is what the learning. The last point, I think very, very important point, is about this pandemic proved the whole world we cannot do things alone, right? The problems are humongous for everyone to solve it. So we need to collaborate. So whereas many startups in education space, I talk about, even nonprofits, oh, this village we used to work with, there is no way to reach out today to people. So that is a wrong assumption, because if your employee is not able to reach out, because across the country, every district, people are living. There is somebody working there. So you need to expand your horizon about the region that you are working on, who else is doing what, and then go start create collaboration, so that you are able to bring in some element, they're able to bring in some other element. Collectively you are able to address the problem, because every pocket, people are living in every part of the country. I am sure there is somebody working there in different aspect of it, right? So there is one of the other nonprofit, it's in our cohort. He's working in Jammu and Kashmir, where he was working with the government schools. With the government school closed, he was able to reach out to this one teacher in a village, so that through the teacher they're able to bring in around 20 children. The teacher took the children to the community center with the social distancing, with the device that she has access to, she's able to start teaching to the children. So like this, people are finding out various ways to innovate and look at the collaboration piece. It's very, very important. With crisis around, we cannot do it alone. So we need to bring in as many people possible, as many institutions possible, so that collectively you achieve quite a lot of things. So that's the good news on this pandemic, is parent involvement is happening automatically. Then the second piece is about the collaboration. We always, in NSRCEL Social, we always talk about collaboration among our own cohorts. Now automatically happening. I'm very glad to see this Bihar Development Collective has come back. And I was talking to a few of them a few months back. It was very interesting to see how enthusiastically people are sharing. Because otherwise you're holding on to your heart that, okay, this is my area that I'm innovating. I don't want to share with anybody. And today that is broken. I think it's a great job, Shravan. So coming back to Sahitya, right, Inqui-Lab Foundation, and they're all from the Teach for India, alumni association. There's quite a lot of them in NSRCEL cohort, that the fellows, like the example of Shravan, who went to Jamui, and I remember him telling about this, his encounter with Naxalites, and how he was pleading he's not with the government, because he was a prime minister fellow living in Jamui, but he was let go. So while those kind of fellows working on the ground, and we have seen this quite a lot of Teach for India fellows coming forward, and once they got exposed to this government school, the system, and they are innovating. So Inqui-Lab has done an amazing amount of work around bringing this, kindling the innovation thought process among this government school children. And they have done quite a lot of activities pre-pandemic. Now they're hit with two problems, right? One is they were working with the government schools, so the schools are closed. Then the second is about remote digital, so where people are reaching through digital access. So many of their beneficiaries do not have a digital access. So there is two problems. But given that, they're able to do more work during the pandemic, right? Bringing the Telangana government involved, a lot of innovation coming out. And she was sharing recently that innovation the children have come up with. Kisan Mitra is a platform that we built for bringing technologies from IITs, ICAR, and CSIR to farmers, the reverse migrants, to take it forward. But I'm very glad this one innovation by a government school student, what Sahitya shared. I'm proud. I'm putting that in Kisan Mitra platform. One of these days, we will have the child come and talk about this innovation to thousands of people across the country. So that is the kind of effort Inqui-Lab has done. So go ahead, Sahitya, how you overcome this, inhibitions and constraints. So this more constraint means you have an opportunity to innovate, not waiting for the constraint go away, but within the constraint, how you made this possible. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So considering our main work is to teach problem solving and innovation It would have been too hypocritical if we ourselves did not problem solve and innovate when hit with the problem. The very first taste of issues that we faced was very simple, right? The annual showcase that we had planned for 300 people had got cancelled at that point, which is a major part of our student showcases. Then the second thing that happened, like Nagasa had mentioned, is that we were doing a pilot with 1,200 children in school program to teach problem solving and innovation pre-COVID, and that had all of a sudden stopped as soon as COVID hit. So our flagship program had stopped, and we were then looking at what next. Another first instance that I'd like to share is, okay, we thought, okay, we do not have access to children at school. Now what? Like most people, we did at that point start looking online, start looking at an online hackathon. We designed certain content and put out a sign up link. But we do not have direct access to children. Our first sign up link had only about 50 to 60 children. And that was not the scale at which we necessarily wanted to work. So very early, we realized that one, we do not have access to children. Two, we do not have strong B2C models where we can directly reach children and get them to sign up for our programs. We were very early on clear that that was a weak point for us, right? Like Shravan had shared, we definitely went on to the partnership mode. So if we do not have access to children, who has access to children? So the first thing we did was partner with UNICEF and Telangana state government, where we had then designed a 3 to 5 hour course on problem solving, which was accessed via LMS. It did need a mobile, but we knew that if we had created that on our own and tried to reach people, it wouldn't have reached a lot of people. But through partnerships, by partnering with UNICEF, by partnering with the state education department, we were able to then reach 23,000 students who had actually finished the course, completed the course, submitted their ideas. We got around 7,000 ideas from children. We got a chance to curate the ideas, showcase the ideas during the pandemic, and also are right now supporting and incubating 10 ideas from there, right? So all of this was possible because while we stuck to our strength of designing interventions and curriculum, we also partnered with people to gain access to children who can continue to leverage our programs, right? Another partnership we had done was also with the Design for Change and Quest Alliance, where again, we had designed, play to our strength, designed the curriculum and program, while they had given us access to 300 children across 7 states, where the children had participated in our program. So that was something that we had stuck to our strength and very specifically partnered for accessing children. Another piece that we did very early on was also pivot in a certain way in terms of our target group. While we are working with children, our vision was always problem solving capacity in the next generation between 10 to 19 years. So while the schools were closed, we now got a chance to look at the other age group, where we started looking at the youth age group as well, between 15 to 19. So we are currently working on programs that build problem solving capacity for an older age group and not only for school level. So right now we are a part of a UNDP project in Bangalore for rural Bangalore, where we are working on social innovation and entrepreneurship for youth. And because we have on-ground partners there like Seventh Sense, we are not again having to do just a digital thing. We are playing to our strength of designing content, the sessions, etc. While our on-ground partner there in Bangalore is actually going to help us deliver this in rural Bangalore. So this is another piece we started looking at an older target group within our vision, right? The third piece, in terms of what Shravan had brought up, just bringing in or leveraging other stakeholders, right? Even in the School Innovation Challenge, even though it was like an online program where children needed access to the mobile, the 23,000 students needed access to a mobile, right? That constraint was still there. But the fact is this, that the 23,000 students did not have access to a mobile, okay? Who had access was a parent, or who had access was a teacher. So we had many instances where the teacher in the community or the teacher in the school had actually invited the students, and they had done the course on the teacher's phone, right? So we had designed it in such a way that a student could do it individually, a student could do it in a group, a student could do it on somebody else's phone, such that that's why that participation happened. Otherwise it would not have been possible. So we did have on ground stakeholders in terms of youth volunteers and teachers who had actually helped us leverage this and assisted the students in completion of the course, assisted the students in submitting their ideas, etc. The last point I'd like to share was purely also in terms of which programs would you prioritize if you have a gamut of 3 to 4 programs that you are aligned to your vision. Which programs would you now prioritize considering the realities, right? So we had a in-school program that we had to deprioritize. We had a School Innovation Challenge program, which could go statewide, which we prioritized, right? Then we had a youth program, which we now prioritized because it gave us the opportunity, right? So you will also have to make sort of a decision matrix in terms of looking at which programs would best suit the current realities, in terms of leveraging the opportunities that are available and working on those right now. So are you willing to pause certain things and take hard calls in order to pursue other opportunities while they are aligned to your vision? So that is something, of course, that is very, very important to think about. I'd like to definitely share one student idea which Naga sir was talking about at this point. Can you all see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
One second. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are, again, all these ideas had come during the pandemic while we were working with children, right? Sriram, for example, had seen had looked at his parent at home who were weavers, and he looked at a specific process in the jacquard loom which was very, very taxing, right? And he had said, why does my mother or father have to step on this pedal like 1,000 times per day to get this process done? Can I do something else mechanically for this? And he had made a model on his own with materials at home, just popsicle sticks and some wheels and cardboard, and said, I want to make this. And what we did then was to connect him to Malesham sir, who is again an innovator within the weaving domain. And we were amazed to see that Malesham sir had actually told this boy that, this is a problem that existed for so long, but only one other innovator is working on this problem, and you are the second, right? and it was amazing to hear this. And so while so this is, I would say, is another thing that we prioritized while we are looking at scale, looking at programs. We started picking students that we were seeing across our programs and started working with them one-on-one through mentoring, through funding, which is very much possible on the phone, very much possible through in-person visits as well. So our team had actually visited Sriram. Sriram had come and visited us in terms of nurturing his idea. And one last thing I'd like to share is even the agricultural idea that sir was talking about is the multi-purpose bag for agriculture. Again, these children, their parents are farmers. They had said that while farming, they had a lot of tools to carry. If they pluck produce, they have to put it somewhere. Where do they put their mobile phones? If they're spraying fertilizer, so they basically created like a wearable, multiple types of wearables for multiple types of agricultural activities, and they had created this using fertilizer bags. So there was, again, resourcefulness, things that are available to them. They themselves have got it stitched within their community and made the first model. So children are very resourceful. They can use things that are around them. They only need a platform, a person to talk to, a person to encourage, a person to support, and they can actually learn on their own to a large degree. So these are few things that you can leverage. So I would say a child itself is the first stakeholder to leverage, because they themselves can do a lot if nurtured and supported. Yeah.
Awesome. This Malaysian is that movie Malaysian, that person?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, awesome. Very nice. Yeah, people in crafts, I think you may want to watch the movie Malaysian. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how this person is able to see a problem of his mother and trying to solve and automating some process of it. That's fantastic. Sahitya. This is what people, that we don't need to be sitting on waiting for this pandemic to go and then figure out what am I going to do. So we have to jump in and innovate, as Sahitya mentioned. If you claim yourself as a innovation, kindling organization, but if you don't innovate, you are in trouble. So I think this is amazing. Good to see that. The point, what is very, very interesting is that if you look at today, the education, what we talk about, this seems to be a parallel track. A child in your home, she closed the door and she's learning, studying, exams. But the family activity, there is something's going on. But there is no connect between these two. I think this pandemic made that merger today. I think what Shravan also mentioned, the point about that experiential learning, where what we're talking about, right? And I remember in Valley School as well, I was telling in earlier session that the biology, the teacher is telling that, okay, you make a curd at home, you observe what is changing, and then go analyze what bacteria is causing the change, right? And they're asking to analyze just involved in the process of making curd. Otherwise, the curd making process happen every day at home, but you keep mugging up about this bacteria and how the curd making. So that was not connected. So today, this pandemic, there is no way else to go, and making the families coming together in terms of learning and then sharing with each other. So this is going to be the joy of learning that we always talked about. I think that's a great point, what she's mentioning, that a child who is now thinking about the learning and applying that, how can I help my mom in the weaving part of it? Or how can I help my father applying what am I learning and creating products for them? So this is a great example of this experiential learning we were all waiting for to happen. I think this pandemic is making it happen. So thanks, Sahitya. It's amazing. Now we have Santosh from Mantra. So Mantra is a great example I always talk about in terms of collaboration, right? So in our first cohort, when we started social, NSRCEL becoming maybe the country's first incubator to incubate the non-profits. And, Mantra for Change was one of the first cohort. So when we start looking at creating the social cohorts for nonprofits, so one of the things that we ensured is about nonprofit and for-profit, there is no change in terms of business-wise. Nonprofit has 2 customers, whereas for-profit have only 1 customer. So nonprofit, you have a donor who's your customer, and the beneficiary, you have a customer. You have to treat both of them as a customer, because if you use the word donor and beneficiaries, then the donor, you're going to keep begging. In the beneficiary, you keep dropping. So then you will have a problem that, okay, my onus is about the person I'm begging to. I have to listen to him. The person I'm dropping it to, I don't have to worry about it. So we made this change in thinking process that both of your customers, even one of them is not happy and you're not solving the problem. I think so Mantra has done this very, very well, because they're able to bring this element of streamlining system processes plus collaboration, right? Because the second part in nonprofits, where I've seen that hardly you people collaborate, we cannot blame them, because the problem there is that, okay, I go to a donor and say that I'm solving this problem in Bihar. And if the donor says, okay, no, in Bihar, solve this problem, I have money for it. And he doesn't say no to the donor. He says, okay, no, I'll do that as well. So I've seen in many nonprofit, they're doing like 10 things, 20 things, because somebody with money called them and said, can you do it? They'll do it. But we need to change the process, that thought process to that, okay, I am good in A, but if you want a problem B to be solved, I will bring my partner. so that you get better at A. So I'm very glad, I think Mantra for Change completely broke the mold and then said that, okay, we are good in these things. For everything else, I'll bring a partner. So I remember visiting Bomasandra cluster, where I was surprised because there are already three of our nonprofits were collaborating, where, in the cluster where Mantra for Change was working, Ant Hill was building playground, right? So they were part of the cohort. And they incubated Isaksham because they are into education, so they don't have reinvent the wheel, so that what they learned, so Isaksham can take it forward. That's what Shravan mentioned earlier, that when we collaborate, you are not thinking alone and you think for where you are good at thinking. For everything else, you bring more brains into it so that collectively you solve this bigger problem. So Santosh, how this pandemic pushed you to innovate beyond digital, right? Because I always say that in many nonprofits, so they are relying on government schools to reach out, or digital and through the government schools, right? But today the schools are closed. And how are you able to continue in this pandemic? Any innovation that you want to share with people?
No, sure, sir. In fact, that's a very good question in the NGO circle as well, that during the pandemic, how do we really look forward to, or really look to impact the children when the children are not coming to school? So, in fact, building on what you were just sharing, sir, about collaboration. So I remember last year we had a call with about 25 organizations, and all these organizations working in the field of education, working in remote and tribal geographies. So I'll just use this story to build on the power of collaboration. So what happened was that all these organizations collectively, we realized that were impacting 100,000 children. And one organization, if you would find, they were impacting about 2,500 children in Leh Ladakh region. Now, if that, first of all, that organization would not be able to demonstrate their work to any substantial funder. And now during the pandemic, how do you, and not only about pandemic, but during normal days also, how do you really come together to ensure that we are able to collectively also project the figure that a funder, a large funder, would be able to, or would be interested in? So that's what we did. So we realized that now during the pandemic, and I'm not talking about the online medium, I'm not talking about the work that we are doing with the state machinery right now, but what I'm talking about is during the pandemic, we were able to collaborate with more and more organizations. And this particular project itself, we were able to collaborate with 25 organizations impacting 100,000 children. And we were able to raise 1.5 crore for this entire project. And again, that was phenomenal. Now, this organization, all the organizations which were there as part of this particular collective, we are still together. We are still talking about what else we could do. And in fact, there are few funding opportunities also that we are exploring, where we could write about the power of collective coming together to impact a larger student mass that we are talking about. And I think that was a great, I would say, great thing about collaboration. And it's there on our website as well, the Remote and Tribal Collective. I'll share the link with you over like in the chat box itself. This was a great learning, sir, for all of us. In fact, Shravan and Isaksham team were part of it. Now you also remember, see, if Mantra goes to Assam, Mantra would take 2 to 3 years to build the context. If Mantra goes to Leh Ladakh, it will take ages to build the context and acceptability over there. Now see the kind of acceleration that we are getting when we are collaborating with all these organizations. So we collaborated with the organizations. There was a model which we all created on top of the model which was provided by Education Above All, which is a Qatar-based organization. So we co-created model, and then the edu leaders, or edu leaders as we call them in Isaksham, and then the community volunteers and all of these people. And that time we were having 1,000 volunteers working on this program alone. We were able to do all these things over a period of 3 to 4 months. And I would say, sir, that was a great learning. So despite online medium, despite anything else, we also we realized that storytelling volunteer force is something that we should really leverage during the pandemic, so that the children are able to continue their education. We were talking about continuity of education that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great, awesome. So now we'll just pass. If there anyone have any questions, you can ask. Richa, I think someone asked, what is your question? I'm not clear. You want to just yeah.
Yes, sir. Hi, I'm still not clear on the execution part.
Yeah.
Like without having any smartphone or internet fluent, facility, how are these things able to reach up to the those core rural areas or reach to a large space of people who are not really having access to internet and smartphones? That part I'm not.
Santosh, you want to take that?
Sure, sir, definitely. In fact, two things over there. One, and I think Saitya will be very happy. Project-based learning was something that we did a lot. So we realized that many of the things that were created was created keeping in mind, or was created with an assumption that children would have access to smartphones and children would have access to all the like they can access the videos and audio files which are still, I would say, scarcity in rural areas. So those phones were not there. But we also realized that, and Shravan can comment on that, we also realized that you will always find one or two person in the village who will have access to a smartphone. And that was our target first point of contact. So I'll give you an example of Jyoti Mahila Samakhya. Jyoti Mahila Samakhya is a group of women volunteers in Bihar. So we onboarded 200 women volunteers from Jyoti Mahila Samakhya across 8 districts. We trained them for a week's time. We taught them what does a project-based learning means. We also taught them how they should be doing an assessment when they are meeting the child. And the assessment was done over a smartphone. There were objective questions that were noted down. And then the child, the role of the community volunteers was very minimalistic. They had to take project-based learning approach. And we were giving them like we were giving them step-by-step instructions. And each and every training, they knew what after the training, they knew what they are supposed to do with the child. Now, when they go on the ground, they would do those, execute that with the child. So each group had only 5 children. We also made sure that there are not more than 5 children as part of each group during the peak of the pandemic. And the place was given by the Gram Panchayat. So Gram Panchayat was onboarded with the community volunteers, 5 to 6 children as part of each group. As the pandemic eased down a little bit, we were able to extend the total number of children in each group to 20. So that's how we were able to execute this entire model. Shravan, would you like to mention anything here? Because many of the edu leaders were also part of the project.
So I will just add one more idea to this. See, basically, हमारा जो भी program का intervention है ना, उसका hypothesis is this, that there is an organization, there is a client, the organization is somewhere else, the client is somewhere else. The organization will come in, do something, will return back. And for this access to happen, you need to have a smartphone. You need to have something to continue करा सके इस connect को. So if you see what we say that every individual in a village has something to offer. जैसे एक माँ जितना अच्छा कहानी और कविता सुना सकती है, उतना अच्छा कहानी कविता हम लोग को सुनाने में बहुत समय लगता है ना? So what happens is that like an organization like iSaksham, all our edu leaders are the edu leaders who are in the same village. They are teaching in the same community. They are teaching in the same schools. So lockdown है भी तो हर बच्चा को पहचान. All the children are at foot distance. So what this lockdown has also taught us is that the over-reliance for this connect and over-reliance on computers, on mobiles, and on this system of someone delivering from outside is something that we need to challenge. We have to build in something in the community. चाहे वो community में बच्चे पे build करें, चाहे community में cluster resource group पे build करें, we have to build in something in the community that when something like this happens, either lockdown or something else, you are not into a flux कि होगा क्या, आप क्या करें, हम तो जा ही नहीं सकते. आपको जाने की जरूरत भी नहीं है. Because somewhere, in the community itself, people know what to do. they only need that kind of nudge. और उस nudge के लिए 1 to 2 smartphones हो सकते हैं या आप वहां जाकर दे सकते हैं. And there are different models. In Maharashtra, it was covered in NLTV that they used to have this box on Jeep and they used to go to villages and like used to do these services. So what I'm saying is this whole execution has happened because आपके presence वहीं पर है. मतलब community में ही लोग हैं जो ये कर रहे हैं, आप नहीं कर रहे. Community is doing what it should do.
So I think so the point is about you have to broaden your horizon, right? Whatever you're doing, it is one channel. But if your region that you are targeting to work on it, as Shravan mentioned, as Santosh mentioned, there are multiple organizations there in that region. And now is the time to collaborate. There are somebody in the village and somebody is living there. And how do we reach out to them? That is one part. The second could be is about sending material supplies to that person who can again disseminate in the local areas, right? And the third is about, if you look at a community center or community service center or even Anganwadi, it's a different government organization, there'll be somebody with a very simple phone. So you can start communicating, start how to leverage those systems. So utilize what are the resources available in that region, the village that you want to target, and talking to them. This is the problem that I'm seeing, that there is no way to reach out. So last month I received a report done by somebody called Huber Social. This lady lives in Australia, and she analyzes somebody in Tirunelveli district in Tamil Nadu about index. And she sent me a report, a lady living in Australia and sending a happiness report of people in that village in Tirunelveli and during pandemic. So whereas here, and I have seen startups saying that I have no way to reach out to my customers, right? This is where that you have to innovate. That's what people are talking about today, is about number one piece is a collaboration. Wherever the region that you want to reach, identify people who are operating on the ground. That's number one. The second is about identify people who may have a very simple infrastructure. Utilize that infrastructure, whatever that may be. It could be a simple feature phone, or it could be one phone. Then bring in the assisted digital thought process. So that's what I'm going to go to Anand, where they relied on assisted digital pretty much. So Anand works in government schools in Pune, where they bring in 21st century skills to the government school children, teaching them, in drama, art, and dance, coding, and multiple things. When I was visiting last time, I remember, these government school children doing a debate amazingly very well, right? And after some time, Anand said, give me a book that one of the writer who's in the class, and she's very good in writing, they're able to publish a book from her. So bringing the other aspect of education in government schools, that's what Apprentice Project does. But now the schools that rely on, it's closed, right? So how, Anand, you are able to take this forward, because education is number one priority. And then they come to school to achieve the education. On top of that, you teach them other 21st century skills, but you are almost at the bottom, because at home, livelihood is a problem. So whereas, I see that more and more 9th and 10th standard children being pulled down into livelihood rather than education piece. So 21st century skill, what you're talking about, is very low at the priority. How you are able to continue, innovate, and reach out. And you mentioned that out of 2,200 children you are working the previous year, 600 of them you are not even able to trace. So go ahead, Anand.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, NSRCEL and Nagasha, for this opportunity. In this conversation, I think so. I would say there are two things that I would like to focus on. One, how we assisted the digital learning. That's number one. And second, as Nagasha used to say, when a child goes to a school, the child is in a learning environment. When a child is out of the school, the learning environment is gone. What does that mean? Even if you send I think from our experience, even if you send a video or whatever we send it across, it's very hard for the child to learn, because I am alone. Like if you look back at our experiences when we were children also, we have rarely, I think the toppers in the class mostly learn alone, right? So we are not I would say learning in itself is a very social aspect. So when learning in itself, for most of the children, is a social aspect, it becomes very difficult for a child to learn on its own suddenly without any transition time. So I'm going to focus on two things. One, I'm going to focus on how we assisted the learning process. And second is how do we create that learning environment. To context, so we work majorly on Pune, Bombay, Tier 1 cities. So we have, I would say, the privilege of a larger digital access. So I'm very grateful for that. Unlike, I think, where Shravan and Santosh, like I do understand a lot of our systems may not be suitable for a slightly more Tier 3 tier for a rural context. That's number one. Second, what do we fundamentally do, right? So we use electives, which is coding, electronics, dance, drama, arts as a medium or a method to develop creativity, problem solving, confidence, collaboration, etc. So we develop skills using electives. So if you look at in itself, it's very hard to teach dance online. So forget taking dance online in itself is a difficult task. So obviously, this was also a journey of multiple failures. We had tried we tried Zoom classes. We failed miserably. Like in a 10 by 10 feet, 10 by house, a Zoom class is not possible. Network connectivity is very bad. We also tried to support the children with device help. So that really helped us the boost. Eventually, what did we end up with? We realized, I think I'm going to go back to Sahitya's point. We tried to leverage the digital systems in the community or the house, which is basically most of the parents, we work with majorly the daily wager category, which are cab drivers, maids, house helps, etc. They have a smartphone, which is a very basic smartphone. When I say very bad, under 5,000 rupees smartphone. Can someone say one app which is there in most of the basic smartphones? Anybody can voice out?
WhatsApp.
Exactly. So I'm gonna go to that because we leveraged WhatsApp. So again, give context, right? So my team before this was 100% classroom learning model team. We were a on-field team. So we went from 100% classroom learning to a digital team. And to make things in WhatsApp, we learned WhatsApp Business API, which was very hard for a non-digital person to read across. I'm going to share you a link, which is a demo of our program. In the demo of the program, again, I know that this is a lot of non-digital conversation also, but what I want everybody to look at it is how we try to set up the learning environment using a tool called gamification. So we studied a lot on gamification. There is we did like an in-depth study on gamification, loops, challenges, etc. So I'm going to share you a link. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to put it in the chat over here. This is majorly to understand the digital environment that we set up using a child's or child's parents' WhatsApp phone. So I put the link of the bot that we created by a non-tech team. I'm really proud of my team to kind of get this out. So did you guys get a chance to get the link? If you can click the link, copy in your, and I'm assuming that if you're using WhatsApp web or something, if you can click the link and send the keyword demo, then you would get to know how this whole gamification thing happens. Again, I'm just expecting, so I'm just calling random names so that Santosh, were you able to access the link and where that demo keyword able to go?
Hey Anand, I'm still trying. Give me some time.
Yeah. Sahitya, any luck? I'm calling people whose cameras are on, so easier. Yes, anybody were able to get that demo word out, like copy the link in their WhatsApp phone?
Yeah, after clicking on the link, I got a screen, the apprentice project, continue the chat.
Yeah, continue the chat, correct. Just click on it, then you go to a number, then number, just click the demo part. And yeah, just keep taking it.
I was,
just take you on
I was able to select the course.
Exactly. So if you look at it, we kind of, so for example, digital also creates a huge of non-personalization. So we create a mascot. So we call it Tab Buddy. So the Tab Buddy is a children's ambassador to that and help them learn. So we try to keep it personalized. This was our effort to keep it learning environment. So this was also based on the gamification philosophy. I think, Rajesh, after the courses, were you able to get a list of things coming into your phone?
Yes, I'm able to.
Yeah, someone mentioned, Lalitha mentioned that she got the course list, Anand. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think once you start getting the list, and I think then they will reach to, and you will get an activity. All of those things will keep on coming. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump into it. Again, you can follow the process and submit any picture or video to understand how the whole thing happens. But majorly what we kept in mind is, since the child does not have a phone, which is a fact that we are aware, even in the cities and even in the slums, we know that it will be a child's parents or teacher's phone. What does that mean? It should be independent. The system should be independent. I want to go back to Shravan's word. It should not be dependent on someone teaching or not teaching. So we created an automated system, which means that this bot can be accessed anytime, and it will automatically send the stuff to a child. And this right now we are developing a Hindi version of the bot, and hopefully in the next couple of months we'll be releasing a Marathi version of the bot also. Now that's the first thing that how do we create independent systems? That's number one. Second, why do we use WhatsApp? Why did we, I think I would say we took a couple of months to even learn how WhatsApp Business API works and how do we create in that. Second, since the child's parent or father has parents are mostly the fathers have the phone, they come back to home mostly after 8 p.m., which means that the child has only learning access after the 8 p.m. What does that mean? The child should be able to download the videos, child should be able to self-learn based on his or her convenience. And WhatsApp is the best way because once the videos that are downloaded can be downloaded in the phone. That's number one. The number two, it can also be saved and the internet is less, which means that even if you have a 2G or you have an E connection, it can, the 14 or 15 MB video can still be downloaded in its own pace. And obviously there is no, everybody knows how to use WhatsApp. So now this is how we try to set a system based on the learning and based on the digital access that exists in the community. That's number one. Second, we also try to keep in mind that so if you start progressing on it, if you start giving a lot of pictures and all, it's created as a game. So we try to use the child's innate curiosity and excitement to set that learning environment. What does that mean? Lot of rewards, lot of badges, lot of points, lot of information, that is lot of fun things that is coming in, because we focus on fun because the child is alone, so that the child can learn fast. A child can keep that learning environment sustained. Added on to that, we have a huge base of volunteers. These volunteers mentor the child. These are, when I say volunteer, for every 20 children, we have one volunteer. These are mostly industry volunteers, like we call it the industry mentors. They mentor the children either on WhatsApp groups or by direct calls. And what do they mentor on? On the video that the child is getting, nothing else. So why again? So because of that, my team also changed from a lesson plan formation to a total video development organization, and very animated, very crisp, etc. So what I'm going to try across is, one, from a team side, this was not what we, or I would say any of my team member had signed up for. So I think they changed entirely their skill set. They learned the skill set completely so that we can tackle this pandemic. And that took us good amount of time. I would say, I think you can change the world, but changing yourself is always the hardest because that involves unlearning a lot. So I think my entire team, I kudos to my whole team to kind of unlearn the whole process. They did. That's one change that we did. Second, focus on the social and the emotional environment where the child is. I know that a lot of people are trying for the non-digital way of working across. And even in the non-digital way, even if you're sending a kit home, even if you're sending, let's take a textbook home, anything that we're sending home, where is the child sitting? And if the child is sitting alone and learning, what is your value add to a child which can motivate a child to learn, right? So imagine us sitting at home and asking, okay, abhi kids seeko. Obviously, if I'm a not so a topper, I will not learn because I do not have those habits. how are we conscious about that social and emotional problem, and also how do we develop those habits in our children so that they continue learning. So again, focus on that environment. There are many solutions to this, from gamification to habit development to tiny habits. There are like many. So that is the other thing that we focus. Third, the existing systems that in the house, which can be as simple as a feature phone, which can happen with a parent. So multiple systems, right? But how do we leverage existing systems? Because that can give us the ideas to solve the problem. So yeah, I think that is what we did, and I think we are still trying to do it. Hopefully, we are also imagining that next year the schools will open. So
Yeah. So that's the point, is about, it could be the digital, assisted digital as well, right? So how can you leverage this 25% who have internet access or digital access to extrapolate that and encourage and increase the use further as well, right? So the other point is about the volunteer base. There is quite a lot of people. Someone asked the question, this collaboration element, shamelessly utilizing every resource possible and try to leverage that resource to achieve your benefits, is something that you might want to look at as well. So all the panelists, can you share your contact details as well in chat box so that people can reach out to you if they have further questions and all that. One last point, I'm going to, with that, we'll wrap this up. If you have any question, just share it in the chat box. Otherwise, Shravan, I'm going to pick a question, or Santosh, you can share. Is that one of the things that we are seeing is that today the children are given access, as Anand mentioned. I know there could be one phone available in the family, which is usually with the male, the father or a brother, who takes out for his livelihood. Probably, you have a 30 minutes access to that device to convey to your beneficiary what you need to convey. Then she can or he can go and work on the offline model. The other part, what I've seen, which is very disturbing, is that people seeing that with this device has been accessible to especially the girl children, and thus male at family having an issue saying that, okay, what are you spending time on, right? Even there was a UP, some government officials telling, don't give phones to your girl children, right? So how are we seeing this gender equality issue as well? Because this medium that you found out to reach out to the child may not be the medium a family may be accepting it to it. Santosh or Shravan, do you want to give any comment on that?
For this, I will just say one thing, like,
yeah,
what we fear is what we don't know. So many times the parents or the family is fearful only because they don't know. In a sense, the only myopic vision is कि अगर ये देंगे तो ये कुछ गलत इस्तेमाल होगा. The time you expand the horizon, कुछ नहीं करना है. अगर आप उनको बस participate कराएं बार-बार किसी learning activity में जो वो बच्ची कर रही है, तो अपने आप उनको लगने लगेगा कि this could be used in multiple ways. So, but I don't say that this is the solution, but I'm saying this is one of the solution. उस tunnel से बाहर, we have to just pick them out from that tunnel and let them know that this device can help you in so many ways in which you could be a partner. So the fear comes out from this कि I don't know ये खाली समय में इसका इस्तेमाल कैसे करेगी या क्या करती होगी. You say that fear always exists and an organization cannot subside that. But we cannot fight that. What we can do is we say कि see this part also कि जब how can you know that this device will help your child in A, B, C, D, and you will be a partner in helping your child in achieving that A, B, C, D. I think that will allay some of the fears that the family has. That has been our experience. Only 1% of our edu leaders have ever used a smartphone. And now if you see their WhatsApp status, you will be amazed. Sometimes I am also amazed with the kind of freedom with which they post their WhatsApp status. So the technology brings freedom and power with it.
Great.
I think that would be my answer.
Awesome. Santosh, you have anything to add?
No, sir, nothing in addition to what Shravan has added. I think it's a similar experience, whether it's Bihar or Bangalore or any other place. What we have seen is कि बहुत बार क्या होता है कि our own fear is coming from intergenerational fear that people had. कि बच्चों को एक्सपोजर देंगे, बाहर से उनका दिमाग खराब कोई कर देगा, इस एज में क्या हो जाएगा, खासकर लड़कियों के केस में यू विल ऑलवेज फाइंड दैट द पेरेंट्स वुड फील कि अगर कोई और उससे बाहर से चैटिंग करने लग गया तो हमारा समाज में नाम खराब है. These are issues that the parents face in the communities. I think as an organization, what we have tried to do is to help parents overcome that fear, and I think Shravan has articulated this really well. मतलब it is easy to just say कि smartphone available करा देना, but then there are socio emotional reasons attached to why a girl child or why a child who is in grade 8, 9th and 10th is not getting access to smartphone, because उनके पेरेंट को चाहिए ही नहीं कि उनके बच्चों को स्मार्टफोन मिले. और वहां पर हमारा रोल आता है to sit with the parent, to have a conversation, to say कि why your child needs a smartphone. वो बहुत important है मेरे हिसाब से.
Awesome, good. Thanks everyone, and it's a wonderful sharing of information. So first of all, accept the fact that only 25% of the country have a digital access. I think that itself is, we have a lot of in denial as well, and people saying that no, that's possible, this possible, but that is number one. The second, that'll give you a way to innovate, that how can I reach, or how can I leverage this 25% to address the another 50% or 75%. So you'll start thinking from that angle. But if you blindly assume that, okay, I have phone, my neighbor has my phone, and everybody around me has, but the whole country has it, that's a wrong phenomena to start with. So this is where that people need to be clear on, what we have, so that you can innovate. So then you start looking at that, okay, then I have only way to reach out is through digital. If it is not available, how can I innovate? Who is there in my place? You will start looking at partners. Sitting in Jamui, how Shravan is able to build this partner network. So it is possible in any pockets of the country that you can build a partner network that who is already available there. You may not be able to provide 100%, 200%, but you should not sit and wait for this pandemic to go, so that you will get your digital app into somebody's hands. So this is the one is about collaborate, find the local partners. And the last part is about start looking at the assisted digital as an option as well. And the last, what Anand mentioned, that analyze what is available in the village, in the community, in the street, what are all the devices available, how can you even leverage those devices. There is one startup just come up with, simple content in a thumb drive. They're just giving out to people. You put it in your whatever the television that you have, you can start learning, right? People are putting up a loudspeaker in an auto rickshaw and then parking in one street at point and then talking to people. They're leveraging satellite connection through the TVs. Is there a possibility? Like that, keep innovating, because once you understood there is a problem, you will start innovating. But more and more people, what I see that we are in a denial that the whole country has a digital access. I think thanks to the pandemic, that problem is clear to everybody's mind that, okay, we have a 70% of the household do not have a digital access. Then you can wear your innovation hat to how to reach out. Thanks to all of you. And I'm sure this is just a glimpse of what can be achieved. I'm sure there is quite a lot of you might have done more and more. Collaborate, connect, share, so that we can achieve this goal of taking the education to the poor and who do not have a digital access, and they're already poor, but the digital divide making them creating a hurdle to realize the potential to become in education, because it took decades of effort by many organizations to bring children to school. But today, if they see that it is not possible, they're going to go back to their livelihood opportunities, so that it's going to be tough for us to get them back into school. So don't wait, jump and figure out ways to innovate. Thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naga. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
who
you.
joined
Thank
here,
you, Naga.
and all the speakers on the panel.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, Sahitya.